waited until the morning of that press conference to inform Lynch and Yates of his plans to hold one without them, and he did so only after notifying the press. As a result, Lynch's office learned about Comey's plans via press inquiries rather than from Comey himself. Moreover, when Comey spoke with Lynch, he did not tell her what he intended to say in his statement. So they do use the word insubordination, insubordinate, and also in the current FBI Director Christopher Wray's response to the report, he cites a number of recommendations, about 8 recommendations that the Bureau is taking on board, and he does specifically use this term insubordination in his discussion of his predecessor, Director Comey's actions at that time, Dana.
All right, Catherine Herridge, if you'll stick around, we'll come back to you, and I know we're going to see you later on the 5 as well. We appreciate all you've done in the last several months, but certainly today you've been working your tail off. We will come back to you in just a few minutes. All right, let's bring in Bob Driscoll. He's former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President George W. Bush, and Shelby Holliday. She's senior video reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Shelby, let me start with you. You've been covering this story for a long time.
In an obstruction of justice case, the president has gone on Twitter and has spoken at length about Comey's what he says is corrupt intent and Comey's credibility. So in this sense, while the IG report does fault Comey's decisions and his actions, it actually, legal experts say, does not really dent his credibility because it does not find that he lied. It doesn't find that he misled the public. It also says it found that there was no evidence. There's no evidence here to support the theory that the FBI was against Trump. Where there are those really damning text messages from people below James Comey, the report says those political views in text messages did not influence the investigation. And at the end of the day here, when you look back to 2016, James Comey talked at length about Hillary Clinton's investigation. He did not, on the record, confirm that there was an investigation into the President Trump's campaign. And so I think at the end of the day, Comey's credibility was something everybody was watching for, and it does not seem like that is something that was truly dented by this report.
Bob, you worked at the Department of Justice. This must be quite extraordinary for you to see. I mean, I worked at the Justice Department years ago in 2001 and 2002. I've never seen any sort of report like this that is quite damning for the entire institution. Your thoughts?
It is damning, and it's frankly depressing as a former DOJ employee. I mean, those Strzok and Page texts are kind of breathtaking.
Let me pull those up one more time, Bob, in case people have joined us late, because this is the bombshell that's coming out of this report. There's this question of Strzok and Page. They work at the FBI, they work under Comey, and they were having an affair. And they're actually texting each other about the investigation, about the campaigns, while they're on their government phones and while they're working on these cases. Can we pull up those that text message just one more time for everyone to see? Do we have them? Here we go, right here. It's Lisa Page asking in August of 2016.
Right.
Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Peter Strzok says, no, he won't. We'll stop it. And Bob, a lot of people are going to focus on that. Like, what does it mean? We'll stop it. Well, obviously, President Trump wins the election. We all know how that story particularly ended. But there is a question about then, did Strzok suggest the Russia investigation in order to hurt President Trump?
Right, and that's what's so sad about it is.
Well, there you go. The IG report is out, folks. You're going to have different opinions on it. Now, remember, this is the third one that we're seeing redacted, and Rod Rosenstein's version, heavily redacted, heavily just things deleted. This Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, we're just seeing more and more dirtiness from them on government phones during their government workday, being paid. They're able to bash or say things like this. Heck, back in the service under Bill Clinton when I was in and he got caught lying, there were the watches going around. As the day got longer, his nose grew. It got bigger. His nose got bigger. That was against the rules for anyone in uniform to wear. We couldn't wear that. That was our president, regardless of what was going on, what was being said. Yeah, you weren't really allowed to publicly bash them in uniform. So these people on the clock on the workday shouldn't be able to text nasty things. There's got to be some kind of rule about that on their, digital devices and communications, emails. You're not allowed to have the dirty jokes come into the FBI and then pass them around. You get in trouble for those kinds of things. So regardless, he's not going to be president, is he? Oh, no, no, no. We will stop that. So luckily, the safeguards were put into play, just like they said. There was no stopping this. A couple of corrupt, high-level, mid-level FBI agents weren't going to be able to do enough. So, yeah, we know that he was fired. Bob Mueller, he fired people, got them, didn't fire them, got them out of the positions. But we already know that these are the same people that did the investigation on Hillary, gave her a pass, and then they start this one on Trump, and then months into it, because of, good watchdog organizations like Judicial Watch polling certain, documents, FOIA requests, we learned, they read, and then they go to the FBI and say, well, look at these. Oh, well, maybe we should get rid of these people. They didn't get rid of them on their own behalf. They knew that these people were corrupt. It's only after somebody else spotted it, pointed it out, that Mueller did that. Bob Mueller. So, interesting release here. We're going to get through it. I got the link. I actually got the report.
And Sarah Sanders is set to brief at the bottom of the hour, and we'll bring that to you live, of course, but if she's running a little late, Marianne Marsh, who's a Democratic strategist, knows the Clintons well. She'll be here to talk about that point of view. But in the meantime, Bob, I wanted you to listen to this sound from Jim Comey. It's call for number 21 up there in the control room. This is where James Comey is talking about how he felt about these accusations that perhaps his decisions, and now we know that the IG is calling them insubordination, might have actually influenced the election in some way. Do we have that? Go ahead.
Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election. But honestly, it wouldn't change the decision. Everybody who disagrees with me has to come back to October 28th with me and stare at this and tell me what you would do. Would you speak or would you conceal? And I could be wrong, but we honestly made a decision between those two choices that even in hindsight, and this has been one of the world's most painful experiences, I would make the same decision.
And I hear him on that, right? We're humans, we make judgment calls, and he's saying that he would have made the same decision looking back. But is there any practical effect or impact by an IG saying that there was insubordination, no political bias? It seems to me this might be like a bad report, but are there any practical consequences that comes out of it?
I mean, I think just to address his statement, I mean, I think where former Director Comey went off the rails is in essence, you can see in that statement, he's playing God as though it's all in his control as to what happens. And I think that we've all, if you've ever been a political appointee, everyone's been in a position where no matter what you do, you're going to tick somebody off. But that's when it's the most important to follow the rules and rely on the procedures and rules that are in place, because then at least you have that, even though you're going to take heat from one side or the other. And so I think the whole point of following the rules is to insulate yourself from having to make the political calculation that he admits to having made. I mean, essentially conceding that he's making the political calculation. So I think that, it really kind of, unfortunately for him, the bloom has kind of come off his rose a bit in the past year. He was kind of viewed as Mr. Integrity and Mr. Stand-Up guy, and now I think through his book tour and other things, and I think it's fair that, I can see why the Clinton camp is upset as well, that the original sin in this matter was that first statement where he cleared Clinton from being indicted, and then essentially went on to light her on fire for the next 20 minutes, talking about all the evidence that he had that wasn't going to result in an indictment. So, all of this is bad for him, and I think it's reputationally damaging.
Although I'm just going to correct one thing. I actually think in all of this, the original sin is actually not being addressed, which is the reason we have this investigation in the first place into Clinton's emails is because she had decided to set up a separate email system and a separate server. That's actually the original sin. If we dig into it, that's why we've had all of these investigations in the first place. All right, Bob Driscoll and Shelby Holliday, thank you for joining me, and we are going to come back to you a little bit later if we get more news. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And what do we have next here? Oh, we have guests. All right, we have A.B. Stoddard and we have Ron Hosko. Thank you so much for being here. Ron Hosko is the former director of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. A.B. Stoddard, of course, you know her. She's on Fox News a lot. She's associate editor and columnist for Real Clear Politics. Sure. Ron, let me just maybe ask you the same type of question that I started with Bob Driscoll, who had worked at the Justice Department for a long time. And one of those who had worked there, you know, we have affection and affinity and respect for that institution, but it's kind of a dark day for the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Dana, if that's for me, someone was chatting in my ear, but it is a dark day for the FBI. There's been a cloud hanging over the organization, the building, for 2 years now. I think that hopefully this Inspector General's report goes some step forward into saying what was true, what is fact-based, and what has been made up over the last 18 months or 2 years, and the clouds for the FBI workforce and their name and the integrity of the organization starts to clear.
A.B., let me read to you a statement from Congressman Nadler of New York. He's a Democrat who says that the stark conclusion we draw after reviewing this report is that the FBI's actions helped Donald Trump become president. As we warned before the election, Director Comey had a double standard. He spoke publicly about the Clinton investigation while keeping secret from the American people the investigation of Donald Trump and Russia. What are you hearing from Democrats today? Are they echoing that frustration?
Yeah, they've made it clear since Hillary Clinton lost that they blame Comey for the measurable effect that his late release of that letter on October 28th and then his closing up of that new probe a few days later had on her final days and weeks of her campaign. And they really perceived it to be fatal and costing her the election. So you're going to see, as Shelby said in the previous segment, both sides come up with things in this report that they believe argues for their narrative. I do think, as someone myself who spent a lot of time studying up on the Hillary Clinton email story at the time, you and I had conversations about this in 2015, 2016. I believe what the secretary did at the time with her server was deliberate and illegal. I think in this report, many of us were expecting to see whether or not there was a trail of evidence showing that the FBI, in their conduct, whether it was insubordinate or rogue or unprecedented, as Comey's was, or otherwise, showing animus like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, whether it amounted to a successful protection of Mrs. Clinton. And the report does not show that. It does not show that the Russia investigation was started on false or not credible premises. And it has a net effect in the end. James Comey's unprecedented behavior, which was, I guess, insubordinate, it still had a net effect, as Congressman Nadler points out, of revealing an investigation into Mrs. Clinton and protecting an investigation, hiding one, into then candidate Donald Trump. And so it's really hard to argue, having looked at this report, that somehow, despite the fact that you have agents like Peter Strzok.
Yeah. If I could have you hold, Senator Lindsey Graham is speaking. We're going to listen in live here.
Okay.
So the FBI, the people in charge of the Clinton investigation, were they really in the tank or not? And we'll see what the conclusions are. And I will challenge Mr. Horowitz to make sure that his conclusion that they weren't in the tank makes sense. Time will tell.
Thanks, Senator.
All right. Disappointing. Yes, this IG report is disappointing, folks. It's supposed to be huge bombshells. Is this the redacted Rod Rosenstein version that Q was talking about? Let's take a look here. Browser. We need a desktop capture. All right, nothing. Let me get this up here. All right, so we had POTUS is in possession. 1, we had the original IG unredacted. We had 2, modified IG unredacted report, Rod Rosenstein version, and 3, modified IG redacted. And that's the one we were going to get, number 3. So it looks like possibly that's what we got. Some heavy redaction. Comey broke from FBI protocol in the Clinton probe. All right, folks, I'm going to shut this one down. We're at the 15-minute mark. I will be back here soon after we go through and get any more breaking news based off this half-assed IG report is what I'll call it. All right, Mike, this is Patriot Hour. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, look in the description box, drop us an email, share us on your social media platforms, and keep fighting for truth. We'll be back here. God bless, Godspeed, and have a great late afternoon into your evening, and we'll see you back here real soon, folks.